Chosen one. You did not arrive here by accident. This moment has been summoned by heaven itself, because your prophetic scroll is being unsealed right now in perfect Kairos timing. What you are feeling in your spirit is not imagination or emotion. It is recognition. Something written about you before birth is stirring, and the appointed hour on heaven's clock has come for it to awaken. Chosen one. You are standing at the edge of a destined threshold. A sealed prophecy is beginning to open. A long-awaited instruction is rising again to the surface, and what unfolds next could begin today, tonight, or in the coming days. This is the kind of moment Scripture speaks of when it says, "There is a time for every purpose under heaven," in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. This is not general timing. This is your timing. Anointed one, the vision was never delayed. It was appointed. As written in Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 3, the vision awaits its set time, and it will surely come. You are not early, you are not late, you are aligned. What once felt like silence was preparation. What felt like waiting was positioning. Chosen one, let your spirit awaken now. Expect movement, expect clarity, expect a shift in your inner world and your outer circumstances. In this hour, as Isaiah chapter 60 verse 22 declares, the Lord hastens what has been written for you. Your moment is here. Your scroll is opening. Chosen one, hear this carefully, because what is happening right now is not ordinary spiritual reflection. This is not another motivational moment or another encouraging word to carry you through the week. This is a Kairos interruption. Heaven is leaning into your timeline, and the weight you have been feeling is not pressure from the enemy alone. It is the tension of an unfinished instruction pulling on your destiny. You have been asking God for clarity, for direction for the next chapter, but the atmosphere around you has felt heavy, almost silent, as if nothing is moving. Yet the truth is more confronting than comforting. Heaven has not been silent. Heaven has been waiting. Chosen one. There was a moment not long ago when God spoke to you with unmistakable clarity. It did not come with thunder or spectacle. It came quietly, firmly, and personally. It arrived in a way that bypassed logic and went straight to your spirit. You knew it was him because it carried both fear and peace at the same time. Fear because obedience would cost you something. Peace because truth always recognizes truth. That instruction did not leave you. It stayed with you. It settled into your thoughts. It followed you into prayer. It surfaced in moments of stillness. And every time you tried to pray past it, it rose again. Anointed one. I want to say this with compassion because I have lived this. There is a subtle trap many sincere believers fall into. We confuse spiritual intensity with spiritual alignment. We increase prayer, fasting, and seeking, hoping God will move, while quietly avoiding the very step He already asked us to take. I remember seasons in my own life where I prayed harder than ever, not because I wanted God's will, but because I wanted relief without obedience. I wanted confirmation that would cancel the instruction. I wanted peace without surrender. And heaven in its mercy did not give me what I asked for. It gave me silence until I was ready to move. Chosen one. Here is the truth that shifts everything. God is not persuaded by volume. He is moved by surrender. Tears are sacred. Fasting is powerful. Prayer is essential, but none of those replace obedience. When the last instruction remains untouched, spiritual activity becomes noise instead of movement. It looks holy, but it does not unlock heaven. This is why you feel stuck. Not abandoned, not punished, but paused. A divine pause exists when heaven is waiting on earth to respond. You may be thinking right now, you do not understand what God asked me to do. You do not understand the cost, the risk, the fear. And you are right. I do not know the details, but I recognize the pattern. Being stuck in the same emotional, financial, relational, or spiritual season while heaven feels distant is often not a test of patience. It is an unresolved instruction standing between you and your breakthrough. The delay you are frustrated by is not denial. It is an open loop. Chosen one, I want you to feel the weight of this next truth because it carries both confrontation and hope. The breakthrough you are praying for is not ahead of you. It is behind you, attached to the obedience you postponed. Heaven already released the answer in seed form. The seed was the instruction. Until that seed enters the ground of action, nothing new can grow. This is not punishment. This is spiritual law. Scripture reveals this pattern again and again. There is a time appointed for every purpose, as Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 tells us. But timing is activated by movement. Even the vision that awaits its appointed time, as written in Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3, does not manifest without obedience aligning with the moment. Chosen one, you are standing in that moment now. This is not coincidence. This is alignment. I sense deeply that some of you already know exactly what this is about. A conversation you avoided, a step you delayed, a release you resisted, a beginning you postponed because you did not feel ready, and yet readiness was never the requirement. Obedience was. Right now, heaven is not asking for perfection. It is asking for movement. This segment ends here for a reason. I want you to sit with this truth before we go further, because what comes next will challenge comfort and unlock destiny. Chosen one. Let me take you deeper into what happens when an instruction remains unfinished, because this is where many sincere people misunderstand the nature of divine silence. Silence is not always absence. Sometimes it is containment. Heaven goes quiet, not to confuse you, but to protect what is forming. I learned this during a season when everything looked stalled on the surface, yet inwardly I was restless. I kept asking God why nothing was moving, but the real question was why I had not moved. The instruction was already clear, but fear disguised itself as wisdom, and delay pretended to be discernment. There is a moment when prayer becomes a hiding place instead of a doorway. That moment is uncomfortable to hear, but necessary to confront. You can pray passionately while still avoiding the one step that requires trust. I know because I did it. I prayed eloquently and quoted scripture fluently, yet every prayer circled back to the same unresolved instruction. And heaven in its kindness refused to distract me with new revelations until I honored the last one. That is when I realized God was not withholding direction. He was waiting for agreement. Chosen. One, obedience is not about proving loyalty. It is about alignment. When alignment is missing, energy is wasted. You feel tired even though you are spiritual. You feel frustrated even though you believe. You feel close to breakthrough but unable to touch it. This is the sensation of being near destiny without stepping into it. It feels like standing at a locked door while holding the key but refusing to use it. The key does not open the door by intention alone. It opens by action. There is something sacred about the first step of obedience. It is rarely dramatic. Often it is quiet and internal. It may look like a decision no one applauds, a conversation no one hears, a release no one celebrates. Yet, in the unseen realm, that step carries weight. Angels are not moved by your plans. They respond to your obedience. The atmosphere shifts when heaven sees movement, not just desire. This is why small acts of obedience often trigger disproportionate results. They signal alignment. Anointed One. I want to speak honestly here, not as a preacher, but as someone who has lost comfort to gain clarity. Obedience will often dismantle the version of life that felt safe. It will confront habits, relationships, and identities that once served you but now limit you. That is why delay feels reasonable. Delay promises safety without loss, but safety without obedience eventually becomes stagnation. Comfort slowly turns into confinement. What once felt like protection becomes a cage. You may wonder why God would ask something that feels so costly. The answer is simple and profound. He is not trying to take something from you. He is trying to free you from what you have outgrown. The instruction itself is not punishment. It is preparation. It is shaping you into the kind of vessel that can carry what is next. Destiny requires capacity, and capacity is built through obedience, not intention. Bozen. This is why so many people reach the edge of promise but hesitate to cross. They want the outcome without the transformation. Yet transformation is the gift hidden inside obedience. When you obey, something inside you shifts before anything around you changes. Confidence replaces confusion. Peace replaces anxiety. You begin to sense momentum even before results appear. This is how you know heaven has responded. I want you to understand this clearly. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are not forgotten. You are standing at a precise moment where one decision carries unusual weight. Heaven is not demanding haste. It is inviting surrender. Chosen One. There is a reason obedience feels heavier than prayer, and it is because obedience carries consequence. Prayer can stay in the realm of intention, but obedience moves truth into matter. I want you to understand this, not as pressure, but as clarity. Heaven does not respond to what you mean to do. Heaven responds to what you actually do. This was one of the hardest lessons I had to learn because, like many sincere believers, I thought passion could substitute for action. I thought longing could replace movement. I believed that if my heart was pure, God would eventually move everything without requiring me to step into discomfort. But purity of heart is not the same as alignment of will, and alignment is what unlocks momentum. There is a spiritual principle woven into creation itself. Motion reveals authority. This is why the enemy does not fear a believer who only prays. He fears the believer who obeys. Prayer announces desire, but obedience announces agreement. When you agree with heaven through action, you authorize heaven to intervene in ways prayer alone cannot activate. This is not punishment. This is partnership. God is not looking for spectators. He is forming co-laborers. Chosen One. I need you to hear this gently but clearly. Many delays you have blamed on warfare were actually invitations to move. The resistance you felt was not always opposition. Sometimes it was confirmation that you were standing at the edge of something real. The fear often intensifies right before alignment, not because you are wrong, but because you are close. The enemy amplifies consequences when obedience threatens to shift your trajectory. He does not need to stop you forever. He only needs to delay you long enough for doubt to sound reasonable. I remember a season when obedience required me to let go of something that defined me. It was not sinful. It was not wrong. It was simply no longer aligned. That made it harder. Letting go of what is clearly destructive is easy. Letting go of what once worked feels like loss. I argued with God in that season, not angrily but logically. I listed reasons. I asked for signs. I asked for reassurance. And the silence remained. Not cold silence, but steady silence. Until one day I realized the silence was an answer. God had already spoken. He was waiting to see if I trusted him more than what I was holding. Chosen one. This is where many people misunderstand faith. Faith is not confidence that everything will go well. Faith is trust that God will remain good, even if the path is unclear. Obedience is the language of that trust. When you move without full visibility, you are not being reckless. You are being relational. You are choosing to believe that God sees what you cannot. There is a hidden exchange that happens the moment obedience begins. Control is surrendered, but authority is released. You lose the illusion of safety, but you gain divine coverage. This is why obedience often feels like stepping into uncertainty, yet produces peace almost immediately. Peace does not come from certainty, it comes from alignment. When your will aligns with heaven, anxiety loses its grip, because your spirit recognizes truth. Chosen one, do not underestimate how much heaven responds to the first step. Not the finished work, not the perfect execution, the first step. That step tells heaven that you trust the source of the instruction more than your understanding of the outcome. That is why Scripture so often shows miracles unfolding after movement, not before. The ground responds when feet move. The door responds when the hand reaches. Some of you have been asking God to remove the fear before you obey, but fear is not removed before obedience. Fear is exposed by obedience. When you move, fear is revealed for what it truly is. Noise, threat without substance. Fear thrives in imagination. It weakens in action. Chosen one. The enemy knows this. That is why he keeps you thinking instead of moving. He keeps you rehearsing scenarios instead of taking steps. He keeps you asking what if instead of trusting who. But heaven is not intimidated by uncertainty. Heaven specializes in it. Creation itself was formed out of formlessness. You are not being asked to leap blindly. You are being asked to trust deliberately. The instruction you received was not random, it was measured to your capacity. God does not assign without equipping. If the instruction scares you, it is because it stretches you, not because it will destroy you. Stretching is evidence of growth, not danger. Chosen one. The season you are in is not about information, it is about decision. You already know enough. What remains is willingness, and willingness does not announce itself with words. It reveals itself with movement. Chosen one. I want to bring you into a deeper understanding of why obedience accelerates destiny in ways nothing else can. Obedience collapses time. What would have taken years through struggle can unfold in months through alignment. This is what Kairos timing looks like. Chronos time measures effort. Kairos time responds to obedience. When you move in alignment with heaven, you step into a current where things happen faster than logic predicts. Not because you earned it, but because you entered the right flow. I have watched this happen repeatedly, both in my own life and in the lives of others. People who were stuck for years suddenly experienced rapid change after one clear act of obedience. Relationships shifted, resources appeared, direction clarified, not because they became more spiritual overnight, but because they finally aligned with what God had already spoken. It was as if everything that had been waiting in the unseen was released at once. Chosen one. This is what many people misunderstand about breakthrough. Breakthrough is not always about God breaking resistance. Often it is about you breaking agreement with delay. Heaven does not force alignment. It responds to it. When you choose obedience, you step into a stream that was already flowing. The movement feels sudden, but it was prepared long before you arrived. This is why partial obedience carries such a hidden cost. Partial obedience creates partial alignment. You move just enough to feel busy, but not enough to shift position. This is exhausting. It feels like effort without progress, activity without fruit. Many believers burn out here not because they lack faith, but because they lack full surrender. Chosen. One full obedience does not mean reckless abandonment of wisdom. It means honest agreement with truth. It means stopping negotiations. It means trusting that God sees what you cannot yet see. Negotiation keeps you in control. Obedience places you under covering. There is a difference. I want you to notice something important. The instruction God gave you did not come with a full explanation. That was intentional. If you saw everything that obedience would produce, you might rely on the outcome instead of the relationship. God is not training you to trust results. He is training you to trust Him. Outcomes change. God does not. There is a refinement that happens when you obey without applause, when no one claps, when no one understands, when it costs you reputation or comfort. That refinement strengthens spiritual authority. You begin to move differently, speak differently, discern differently. Not because you are trying to be spiritual, but because obedience has aligned you with truth. Chosen one. This is where identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone waiting for permission. You recognize yourself as someone entrusted with responsibility. Responsibility is not burden, it is honor. God does not entrust instructions to those He does not trust. The very fact that you received a clear instruction is evidence of divine confidence in you. Some of you have been asking God for confirmation, but the confirmation is waiting on the other side of obedience. You will recognize the path once you are on it. Vision clarifies through movement. This is how faith grows, not by certainty, but by experience. I want to say this carefully because it carries weight. Obedience does not guarantee comfort, it guarantees alignment. And alignment is more valuable than comfort, because alignment sustains you when comfort cannot. Comfort fades, alignment endures. Chosen one. The instruction you are carrying is not random. It is connected to people you have not yet met, doors you have not yet seen, resources you cannot yet imagine. Your obedience is not only about you, it is about what heaven intends to release through you. When you delay, others remain waiting. When you move, chains break beyond your awareness. This is why obedience matters so deeply. It is never isolated. It ripples, it activates, it unlocks, and it always costs something before it produces something. But what it produces is always greater than what it costs. You are closer than you think, not because time has passed, but because clarity has arrived. The moment you stop negotiating and start moving, momentum will meet you. Heaven is not asking for perfection. Heaven is responding to willingness. Chosen one. There is a sacred tension that appears just before alignment fully locks in, and many misinterpret it as confusion or instability. In reality, it is the moment where old structures inside you are loosening their grip. You may feel emotionally unsettled, unusually sensitive, or aware that familiar patterns no longer fit. This is not regression, it is transition. When obedience draws near, identity begins to shed layers that once provided comfort but can no longer sustain destiny. I remember feeling this deeply in my own journey, when familiar routines suddenly felt hollow and familiar assurances no longer brought peace. I thought something was wrong with me, but what was actually happening was that heaven was recalibrating my inner compass. This recalibration is uncomfortable because it removes crutches. You begin to realize how much of your stability was tied to predictability rather than trust. Obedience does not negotiate with predictability. It calls you forward even when the ground feels unfamiliar. This is why God often speaks an instruction before he explains the outcome. He is not being mysterious. He is being relational. He wants your reliance, not your analysis. Chosen. 1. There is also grief involved in obedience that few talk about. Grief for the version of life you imagined would unfold. Grief for timelines you expected. Grief for people who cannot follow you into the next season. This grief does not mean you are making the wrong choice. It means you are human. Obedience honors that grief without allowing it to dictate direction. You are allowed to feel the weight of transition without turning back. I want to speak honestly here because spiritual language can sometimes mask reality. Obedience will expose where you have been deriving identity from things God never intended to be permanent. Roles, titles, relationships, even spiritual assignments can become anchors if we hold them too tightly. When God asks you to release something, He is not erasing your past. He is refining your future. What you learned, built, and endured is not wasted. It is being repositioned. Chosen one, notice how often God calls people forward before they feel ready. Read Scripture closely and you will see that readiness is rarely the requirement. Availability is. Moses doubted his voice. Gideon doubted his strength. Jeremiah doubted his age. Yet the instruction remained. The calling did not adjust to their insecurities. Instead, obedience reshaped their identity. The same pattern is unfolding in your life right now. This is why waiting to feel confident before obeying rarely works. Confidence grows as a result of obedience, not as a prerequisite for it. When you move, even trembling, something inside you stabilizes. You begin to realize that God's faithfulness is not theoretical. It is experiential. You feel carried rather than pushed, supported rather than exposed. Chosen one. I want you to understand something deeply personal. The moments when I obeyed without understanding were the moments that defined my spiritual authority. Not because they looked impressive, but because they rewired my trust. Every time I obeyed, my capacity increased, my discernment sharpened, my fear lost ground. Obedience does not just change circumstances, it changes the person walking through them. There is also a timing element you must not ignore. Delayed obedience does not cancel destiny, but it does delay access. Heaven does not revoke what it promised, but it will not bypass alignment to deliver it. This is not cruelty. It is consistency. God's character is stable. He does not contradict his own design. Chosen one. The resistance you feel now is not proof that you are wrong. It is evidence that something real is at stake. Destiny is not casual. It demands response. The weight you feel is the gravity of alignment pulling you forward. You can resist it, but resistance will always feel heavier than surrender. This season is asking you to stop asking God to make it easier and start trusting Him to make it purposeful. Ease is temporary. Purpose endures. When you choose purpose, ease eventually follows, but in a form that sustains rather than sedates. You are not losing anything essential. You are being refined. You are not stepping into chaos. You are stepping into order that your mind has not yet mapped. Obedience is not reckless. It is reverent. And reverence always unlocks clarity in time. Chosen one, as obedience begins to settle into action, something subtle but powerful starts to happen in the unseen. Alignment attracts acceleration. You may not see immediate external change, but internally your spirit becomes lighter, steadier, more grounded. This is the sign that heaven has acknowledged your movement. Peace does not always come after answers. Often it comes after obedience. That peace is not emotional relief. It is spiritual confirmation. I want you to notice how your prayers begin to change once you move. They become simpler, more honest, less anxious. You stop negotiating outcomes and start trusting process. This is maturity. It is the fruit of alignment. When your will and heaven's will intersect, striving fades. You are no longer trying to convince God. You are walking with Him. Chosen one. This is where many people are surprised. Obedience does not remove challenges. It reframes them. You still face resistance, but it no longer defines you. Problems become signals instead of threats. Delays become instructions instead of frustrations. You begin to move with discernment rather than urgency. That shift is everything. There is also an increase in discernment that comes with obedience. You start recognizing what is not aligned much faster. Conversations feel different. Opportunities reveal their true nature. Some doors that once tempted you lose their appeal. This is not loss. This is clarity. When alignment sharpens, vision, distraction loses power. Chosen one. Obedience also attracts provision in unexpected ways. Not always immediately and not always financially at first. Provision often comes as connection, timing, insight, or protection. I have seen opportunities appear at the exact moment they were needed, not before and not after. That precision is not coincidence. It is coordination. Heaven coordinates when obedience creates alignment. This is why obedience is deeply relational. It is not transactional. You are not obeying to get something. You are obeying because you trust the one who spoke. The reward is not the outcome. The reward is alignment itself. Outcomes flow naturally from that place. I want to speak to those of you who fear making the wrong move. This fear is common, but it is rooted in a misunderstanding of God's nature. God is not waiting for you to fail so He can withdraw support. He is invested in your growth. Even when obedience is imperfect, willingness matters. Direction matters. God corrects while moving, not while standing still. Chosen one, staying still out of fear is not safer than moving in trust. Stillness can harden into stagnation if it is not led by God. There is a difference between waiting and avoiding. Waiting is active trust. Avoiding is passive fear. Your spirit knows the difference, even if your mind tries to blur it. As obedience continues, you will notice something else. Your testimony begins forming quietly, not as a dramatic story, but as a pattern of alignment. People may not know the details, but they will sense the change. You carry yourself differently. You speak with more clarity. You move with less apology. This is not pride. It is confidence rooted in trust. Chosen. One, obedience is teaching you how to steward what is coming. The weight of destiny requires maturity. God is not slow. He is precise. He prepares the vessel before pouring the oil. If you received everything at once without alignment, it would overwhelm you. Obedience expands capacity gradually and safely. I want you to hold on to this truth. Nothing you obey today is wasted tomorrow. Every step compounds. Every act of surrender strengthens your foundation. You are not just moving toward a breakthrough. You are becoming the kind of person who can sustain it. Heaven is not rushing you, but it is responding to you. Movement has been acknowledged. Alignment has been recognized. The path will continue to unfold one step at a time, not because you see it all, but because you trust the one who does. Chosen one. There comes a stage in obedience where the external world begins to respond in subtle but undeniable ways, and this is where discernment becomes crucial. Not every door that opens is the right door, and not every resistance means you are off course. Alignment sharpens perception. You start sensing timing instead of forcing outcomes. You notice when to speak and when to stay silent. You feel when to move quickly and when to remain steady. This is not intuition alone. This is the fruit of alignment working through your spirit. I remember a moment when opportunity suddenly appeared after a long season of stillness. At first, it felt like answered prayer. But as I paused, I realized not all movement was meant to be followed. Obedience had not only unlocked momentum, it had refined my hearing. I could sense which invitations carried peace and which carried pressure. Pressure always demands immediate action. Peace allows you to move without urgency. That distinction matters more than people realize. Chosen one. This is why obedience is inseparable from discernment. When you obey, your inner noise quiets. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding spiritually. You no longer chase validation or rush to prove progress. You trust that what is meant for you will not require manipulation. What is aligned will meet you without striving. There is also a humbling aspect to this stage. Obedience strips away the need to be seen. You begin to understand that some of the most important moves in your life will happen quietly. No announcement, no applause, just alignment. This can feel strange in a world that rewards visibility, but heaven values obedience over recognition. Many of the most significant shifts in your destiny will happen where no one is watching. Chosen one, do not mistake quiet progress for stagnation. Roots grow in silence. Stability forms underground long before anything becomes visible above the surface. This is especially true when God is preparing you for influence, responsibility, or stewardship. Visibility without foundation creates collapse. Obedience builds foundation before exposure. You may notice during this phase that certain relationships begin to change naturally. Some conversations no longer resonate. Some connections drift without conflict. This is not loss. This is alignment recalibrating your environment. Not everyone who walked with you in one season can walk with you in the next. This is not about judgment. It is about assignment. Chosen one. Obedience will also confront your expectations of how God should work. You may expect immediate clarity, but instead receive gradual understanding. You may expect quick resolution, but instead experience steady progress. This can be frustrating if you equate speed with success. But heaven measures success by alignment, not pace. I want to tell you something that may surprise you. Obedience does not always make life easier immediately. Sometimes it makes life simpler, but more demanding. Simpler because distractions fall away. More demanding because responsibility increases. When you align, you become accountable to truth in a deeper way. You can no longer pretend you do not know. That awareness carries weight, but it also carries authority. Chosen one. This is where your faith becomes lived, not spoken. You begin to trust God, not because things are comfortable, but because you have seen His faithfulness in motion. Each obedient step becomes a reference point. Each small victory reinforces trust. You stop asking if God is with you because His presence becomes evident in how you move through uncertainty. This stage is not dramatic, but it is decisive. You are no longer standing at the edge. You are walking the path. Even if the destination is not fully visible, the direction is clear. And clarity of direction is more powerful than certainty of outcome. Chosen one, as obedience becomes a pattern rather than an event. Your inner posture shifts in ways that are difficult to describe but impossible to ignore. You stop bracing yourself for disappointment. You stop assuming delay means denial. Instead, you develop a quiet confidence that whatever unfolds will unfold within God's covering. This confidence is not arrogance, it is settled trust. One of the most profound changes obedience produces is how you relate to uncertainty. You no longer see it as a threat. You see it as a space where God works creatively. Uncertainty becomes an invitation rather than a warning. This is where many people miss what God is doing. They avoid uncertainty, not realizing it is often the very environment where faith matures. Chosen one, obedience also heals your relationship with control. You begin to release the need to manage every detail, not because you stop caring, but because you start trusting. Control is often a response to fear, not wisdom. When fear loses authority, control loosens its grip. You still plan, you still prepare, but you do not panic when plans shift. Flexibility becomes strength instead of weakness. There is a freedom that comes when you realize you are not responsible for outcomes, only for alignment. Outcomes belong to God. Alignment belongs to you. This realization lifts a weight many people carry unknowingly. You stop measuring success by immediate results and start recognizing faithfulness as success. This shift preserves your joy. Chosen one. Obedience also recalibrates your prayers. They become less about asking and more about listening, less about convincing and more about agreeing. You find yourself praying shorter prayers with deeper meaning. Silence becomes comfortable rather than awkward. You trust that God speaks clearly when it is time, and you are no longer anxious to fill the space. I want to speak directly to the part of you that still fears loss. Obedience does involve letting go, but what you release was never meant to define you. God does not dismantle without intention. He does not ask you to surrender what He does not plan to redeem or replace. Replacement does not always look like addition. Sometimes it looks like simplification, but simplicity often carries more power than accumulation. Chosen one. You may not realize this yet, but your obedience is quietly positioning you as an answer to someone else's prayer. Alignment is never isolated. It intersects with other destinies at precise moments. Your willingness today creates access for others tomorrow. This is part of the hidden weight of obedience. It serves beyond your awareness. As you continue walking, you will notice that fear no longer drives your decisions. It may still appear, but it no longer governs. Discernment replaces anxiety. Wisdom replaces urgency. You move deliberately, not defensively. This is spiritual maturity forming in real time. Chosen one. I want you to carry this truth forward. Obedience is not a one-time act. It is a posture of trust, a posture of surrender, a posture of readiness. You are not rushing destiny. You are walking into it at the pace alignment allows. Chosen one. There is a quiet realization that eventually settles into your spirit once obedience has been practiced long enough, and it changes how you see your entire journey. You begin to recognize that God was never trying to rush you toward an outcome. He was shaping you into someone who could walk steadily through uncertainty without losing faith. This realization brings a deep sense of peace because you stop measuring your life by milestones and start understanding it through alignment. The urgency that once came from fear transforms into expectancy rooted in trust, and that shift alone restores strength you did not realize you had lost. At this stage, obedience no longer feels like something you force yourself to do. It begins to feel natural, even necessary, not because every instruction is easy, but because resisting alignment now feels heavier than surrendering to it. This is how spiritual maturity reveals itself. You no longer ask whether God is speaking, you ask how quickly you are willing to respond. That change is subtle, but it is powerful. It marks the difference between someone who believes and someone who walks with God. Chosen one. This is also where your past seasons begin to make sense. Not all at once, and not in a dramatic revelation, but gradually. Patterns emerge. Delays reveal purpose. Closed doors show protection. You start seeing how specific moments of disappointment actually redirected you away from paths that would have drained you. What once felt like loss begins to look like preservation. This does not erase the pain you experienced, but it redeems it. Redemption does not always remove memory. It reframes meaning. There is something deeply stabilizing about realizing that God has been consistent even when your understanding was not. You stop blaming yourself for not knowing what you could not have known. You stop replaying decisions with regret. You accept that you acted with the light you had at the time, and now you are walking with greater clarity because you chose obedience when it mattered. That acceptance frees you from self-condemnation and allows growth without shame. Chosen one. Obedience also teaches you how to remain grounded when things finally begin to move. This is important because acceleration without grounding creates instability. When opportunities increase, when doors open, when momentum builds, obedience keeps you centered. You do not rush ahead of God. You do not panic when things speed up. You move deliberately anchored by the same trust that carried you through waiting. This steadiness is rare and it is valuable. You may notice that people begin to respond to you differently. Not because you are louder or more impressive, but because alignment carries authority. Authority is not something you demand. It is something others recognize. You speak with clarity. You listen with intention. You do not need to convince or defend yourself. Your presence feels settled. This is not personality. This is the result of walking in truth over time. Chosen one. There will still be moments of uncertainty ahead. Obedience does not eliminate the unknown. It teaches you how to stand within it. You no longer interpret uncertainty as danger. You see it as space. Space for God to move. Space for creativity. Space for growth. This perspective protects your peace when circumstances fluctuate. You stop reacting to every shift and start responding with discernment. I want to say something that may be difficult to hear, but it is important. Some people will not understand the changes they see in you. They may think you have become distant, slower, or less available. In reality, you have become more intentional. Obedience refines priorities. You are no longer everywhere doing everything. You are where you are meant to be doing what is assigned. That focus may feel uncomfortable to those who benefited from your constant availability, but it is necessary for sustainability. Chosen one. This is where boundaries stop feeling like walls and start feeling like wisdom. You no longer overextend to prove worth. You no longer explain decisions to gain approval. You trust that alignment speaks louder than justification. This protects your energy and preserves your clarity. Boundaries are not rejection, they are stewardship. There is also a deeper intimacy with God that forms through obedience. Not the emotional intensity of early faith, but a steady companionship. You sense His guidance without anxiety. You recognize His correction without shame. Relationship replaces performance. This intimacy sustains you when feelings fluctuate because it is built on trust rather than emotion. Chosen one. I want you to understand how rare this posture is. Many people desire breakthrough, but few are willing to live aligned consistently. Alignment requires honesty, humility, and courage. It requires choosing truth over comfort repeatedly, but it also produces a life that feels coherent. Your inner world and outer world begin to match. You are no longer fragmented, presenting different versions of yourself in different spaces. Integrity brings wholeness. As you continue forward, remember this. You are not walking towards something fragile. You are walking into something prepared. Prepared not just for you, but by God through you. Every obedient step has been laying groundwork, even when you could not see it. The structure is forming quietly, steadily, securely. Chosen one, you no longer need to ask if you are on the right path. The fruit of obedience is clarity, peace, and steady movement. These are not temporary feelings. They are indicators of alignment. Hold on to them. Let them guide you when questions arise. You are not guessing anymore. You are walking with intention. What remains now is not effort, but faithfulness, not striving, but consistency. You are learning how to move with God, not ahead of Him and not behind Him, and that posture will carry you through every season that follows. Chosen one, there is a quiet strength that begins to form when obedience is no longer something you wrestle with, but something you return to instinctively. You may not even notice it at first. It shows up in how you respond when plans shift, when people misunderstand you, when outcomes take longer than expected. Instead of panic, there is patience. Instead of frustration, there is discernment. This is not because you have learned how to control circumstances, but because obedience has trained your spirit to remain anchored regardless of them. At this stage, you begin to understand something profound about divine timing. Timing is not only about when things happen, it is about who you are when they do. God is not merely arranging events around you. He has been shaping your inner posture so that when doors open, you are able to walk through them without losing yourself. This is why alignment often takes longer than we want. God is as committed to your formation as He is to your future. Chosen one. One of the most noticeable shifts now is how you handle waiting after you have already obeyed. Waiting no longer feels like punishment. It feels purposeful. You trust that movement has already been acknowledged, even if manifestation is still unfolding. This kind of waiting carries peace, not tension. You are not counting days or comparing progress. You are present. Presence becomes your strength. You may also notice that your emotional reactions have softened, not because you care less, but because obedience has grounded you. You no longer swing between extreme hope and deep disappointment. Your expectations are steady. You believe, but you are not desperate. You anticipate, but you are not anxious. This balance is rare and it is precious. It protects you from burnout and preserves your joy. Chosen. One, obedience has also refined your ability to recognize what is truly urgent. Everything no longer feels like an emergency. You respond instead of react. You pause before committing. You listen before speaking. This does not slow your progress. It sharpens it. Many mistakes are avoided simply because you are no longer driven by impulse or fear of missing out. Alignment teaches you that what is meant for you will not require panic to secure. I want to speak honestly about something that often surprises people at this stage. Success in any form can be more challenging to steward than struggle. When things finally begin to work, when stability increases, when affirmation grows, obedience must remain your anchor. This is where many drift not out of rebellion, but out of comfort. Comfort can quietly replace dependence if you are not attentive. Obedience keeps you rooted, reminding you where your source truly is. Chosen one, you may find yourself reflecting less on what you want God to do and more on how you want to remain aligned with Him. This is maturity. Your prayers become simpler and deeper. You are less concerned with outcomes and more concerned with integrity. You want your inner life and outer life to agree. That desire alone is evidence of growth. There is also a deeper humility that emerges. You recognize how much grace carried you through seasons where you were uncertain, fearful, or delayed. Instead of judging your past self, you extend compassion. You understand that growth is a process, not a switch. This humility allows you to support others without superiority. You remember what it felt like to hesitate, to doubt, to wrestle. That memory keeps your heart soft. Chosen one. Obedience has also expanded your capacity for gratitude, not surface-level thankfulness, but grounded appreciation. You notice small provisions, timely conversations, quiet protection. You realize how many things went right without fanfare. Gratitude anchors you in the present, preventing you from always living in anticipation of the next thing. It teaches you to recognize God's hand, now not only later. At this point, you may sense that your life feels less fragmented. There is continuity between who you are in private and who you are in public. You are no longer performing different versions of yourself to fit different spaces. This integrity is not loud, but it is powerful. It brings rest. When you do not have to maintain an image, you have more energy to live purposefully. Chosen one. This is also when you begin to see that obedience has quietly repositioned you. You are not where you were, even if your environment looks similar. Your perspective has shifted. Your priorities have clarified. You are no longer chasing significance. You are stewarding responsibility. That shift changes how you approach everything from relationships to work to rest. There will still be questions ahead. Obedience does not eliminate mystery. It teaches you how to coexist with it without fear. You are no longer threatened by not knowing everything. You trust that clarity will arrive when it is needed. This trust is not passive. It is active confidence in God's faithfulness. Chosen one. What you are building now is not fragile. It is steady. It may not impress everyone, but it will sustain you. Obedience has done its work quietly, layer by layer. You are not rushing destiny. You are walking into it with awareness, humility, and strength. The path ahead will continue to unfold as you move not all at once, but step by step. You no longer need to strain to see far ahead. You know how to walk faithfully where you are, and that is enough to carry you forward. Chosen one. There comes a point in this journey where obedience stops feeling like something you are learning and starts feeling like something you are living. It settles into your rhythm. It shapes how you wake up, how you decide, how you rest. You are no longer constantly checking yourself, wondering if you are doing enough or missing something important. There is a steadiness now, a quiet assurance that you are walking in step rather than chasing ahead or dragging behind. This steadiness is not complacency, it is confidence rooted in trust. At this stage, you begin to recognize how much noise obedience has removed from your life. The constant inner debates quiet down. The endless weighing of options loses intensity. You still think, you still plan, but you are no longer consumed by second-guessing. Decisions feel clearer because your values are clearer. Alignment simplifies choices. When your direction is settled, not everything competes for your attention anymore. Chosen. 1. This is also where you start to experience a different kind of freedom. Not the freedom of having no responsibility, but the freedom of knowing where you belong. You are not pulled in 10 directions by expectation, comparison, or pressure. You have learned how to say yes with intention and no without guilt. This freedom protects your energy and allows you to be fully present where you are meant to be. Presence becomes one of your greatest strengths. You may notice that your relationship with effort has changed. You still work hard, but you no longer grind from anxiety. Effort is no longer driven by fear of falling behind. It is guided by purpose. This makes your work more sustainable and more meaningful. You're not trying to prove your worth. You're expressing it through faithfulness. That shift alone changes how tired you feel at the end of the day. Chosen 1. Obedience also deepens your patience with people. You understand now that growth takes time because you have lived it. You are less quick to judge hesitation in others because you remember your own seasons of delay. This patience is not weakness, it is wisdom. It allows you to support without controlling and encourage without pressuring. You become a safe presence rather than a demanding one. There is also an honesty that emerges in how you see yourself. You are no longer surprised by your limitations, nor are you ashamed of them. You understand that God's strength has always been most visible where you were aware of your need. Instead of hiding weakness, you steward it. You plan with awareness. You rest when necessary. This honesty keeps you healthy and grounded. Chosen 1. You may find that you are less reactive to opinions now. Praise does not inflate you. Criticism does not crush you. This emotional stability is not indifference. It is rootedness. When your identity is anchored in alignment rather than approval, external reactions lose their power. You listen when feedback is wise, and you release it when it is not. This discernment preserves your peace. At this point, obedience has also reshaped how you relate to success. Success no longer defines you. It becomes something you steward rather than chase. You are aware of how easily success can distract from dependence if it is not held with humility. Obedience keeps reminding you that everything you have flows from relationship, not effort alone. That awareness protects you from pride and from despair. Chosen 1. There is a quiet gratitude that begins to characterize your days, not because everything is perfect, but because you recognize how much has been carried for you. You notice protection you once overlooked. You appreciate stability you once took for granted. Gratitude becomes less about celebrating milestones and more about honoring daily faithfulness. This gratitude grounds you in reality rather than fantasy. You may also sense a deeper responsibility forming, not as pressure, but as awareness. You understand that your obedience affects more than your own life. Your choices influence environments, relationships, and outcomes beyond your immediate view. This awareness does not burden you, it humbles you. It reminds you to move thoughtfully, to speak carefully, and to act with integrity, even when no one is watching. Chosen 1. This is where character becomes more important than momentum. You have learned that moving fast without alignment creates damage, while moving steadily with integrity creates legacy. Legacy is not about recognition, it is about consistency. It is built quietly over time through repeated choices that align with truth. Obedience trains you for this kind of faithfulness. There will still be moments when you feel stretched. Growth does not end here, but you now recognize stretching as expansion, not threat. You know how to return to alignment when uncertainty appears. You have practiced it. You trust the process because you have seen the fruit. This trust gives you resilience when circumstances fluctuate. Chosen one, you are no longer defined by what you are waiting for. You are defined by how you walk while you wait. That distinction matters. Waiting is no longer passive. It is active alignment. You continue to move forward, not rushing, not resisting, but responding. This responsiveness keeps you in rhythm with God's timing. As you continue, remember that obedience has not confined you. It has clarified you. It has not limited your life. It has focused it. You are not smaller because of obedience. You are stronger, steadier, and more grounded. You are walking with awareness, humility, and trust, and that posture will sustain you through every season still ahead. Chosen one. As this journey continues to unfold, there is a deeper layer of understanding that settles into your spirit, one that cannot be taught quickly or explained easily. You begin to realize that obedience has not merely changed your direction, it has changed your relationship with time itself. You no longer feel chased by the future or haunted by the past. You are present. Presence becomes sacred ground. You understand that God meets you now, not only when something finally happens. This awareness brings a calm strength that does not depend on circumstances aligning perfectly. At this stage, you start to recognize how much unnecessary weight you once carried. Expectations you placed on yourself. Timelines you thought you had to meet. Comparisons that quietly drained your confidence. Obedience has gently stripped these away, not by force, but by clarity. You see now that much of what you feared losing was never essential. What remains is lighter, but stronger, simpler, but deeper. This simplicity creates space for joy that does not feel fragile. Chosen one. You may notice that your internal dialogue has softened. You speak to yourself with more patience. You no longer motivate through pressure or shame. You understand that growth is sustained through consistency, not intensity. This shift changes how you recover from mistakes. Instead of spiraling into self-judgment, you recalibrate and move forward. You have learned that obedience includes returning to alignment quickly when you drift, not pretending you never drift at all. There is also a growing awareness of God's nearness in ordinary moments. You sense guidance in small decisions. You feel peace in quiet routines. Obedience has tuned your sensitivity to God's presence beyond dramatic moments. You no longer need constant confirmation to feel secure. You trust the relationship. This trust stabilizes you when emotions fluctuate and circumstances remain unresolved. Chosen one. Your understanding of strength has matured. Strength no longer means endurance through force. It means discernment, restraint, and timing. You know when to act and when to wait. You know when to speak and when silence carries more wisdom. This strength is not visible to everyone, but it is felt. It creates an atmosphere of steadiness around you. People sense it even if they cannot name it. You may find that your desires have refined themselves. What once excited you no longer holds the same appeal. This is not loss of passion. It is alignment of desire. You are not less motivated, you are more focused. Desire now flows through purpose rather than impulse. This focus protects you from distractions that once seemed attractive but would have diluted your energy. Chosen. One obedience has also reshaped your understanding of rest. Rest is no longer something you earn after effort. It is something you practice as part of faithfulness. You rest because you trust God's ability to work beyond your control. This rest restores creativity, clarity, and emotional balance. It keeps you from confusing busyness with productivity. You understand now that constant motion is not the same as progress. There is a quiet courage growing in you as well. Courage not rooted in adrenaline, but in conviction. You are willing to be misunderstood without needing to correct every perception. You are willing to move slowly when others rush. You are willing to say no when something is misaligned, even if it looks good on the surface. This courage protects your integrity. It keeps you from compromising alignment for approval. Chosen one. This phase of the journey is less about becoming someone new and more about becoming fully yourself. The version of you that emerges is not constructed, it is revealed. Obedience has removed what was unnecessary and strengthened what was true. You are not striving to be authentic. You are living authentically because alignment has made performance unnecessary. You may sense that the future no longer feels intimidating, not because everything is clear, but because you trust your ability to navigate uncertainty with God. You know how to listen. You know how to respond. You know how to return to alignment when questions arise. This confidence does not come from knowing outcomes. It comes from knowing relationship. Chosen one. As you continue forward, remember that obedience is not a finish line you cross. It is a rhythm you maintain. Some days it feels natural. Other days it requires intention. Both are part of faithfulness. You do not measure success by how effortless obedience feels, but by how consistently you return to it. Nothing about this journey has been wasted. Every delay refined you. Every hesitation taught you something. Every step of obedience strengthened your capacity. You are not behind. You are not late. You are walking at the pace alignment requires. That pace may not impress everyone, but it will sustain you. Carry this truth with you. You are not following a fragile path. You are walking within something established. Obedience has positioned you where grace meets responsibility, where peace meets purpose, where trust meets movement. And that posture will continue to guide you quietly and faithfully through whatever seasons still unfold. Chosen one. This is your Kairos moment. What was sealed is opening. What was hidden is being revealed. Heaven's clock has aligned with your obedience, and your prophetic scroll is unfolding exactly on time. Anointed one, receive peace where there was pressure, clarity where there was confusion, and courage where fear once whispered. Stay aligned, stay faithful, walk forward with gratitude and quiet confidence, knowing heaven responds to your yes. May grace go before you, wisdom walk beside you, and favor follow behind you. If this word resonated with your spirit, honor it in stillness and share it only as led.